Hi, I'm Peter Diamandis. I'm here with Lou, Reese, and Mei Hugh, the co-CEOs of United Biomedical, talk about the incredible work that you're both doing in both building a corona diagnostic and a corona vaccine, a COVID-19 vaccine. So Mei, United Biomedical and the division that you just started called C19, you have a pretty wide and varied background for decades now in vaccinations, vaccines, and diagnostics. Could you talk about sort of the family of companies you guys have built?
Yeah, no, so United Biomedical has been around for over 30 years. It's got a history of firsts. We actually have over 5 operating companies and over 1,000 employees worldwide. We were the first company to develop and commercialize a peptide-based diagnostic kit. And from there, we actually developed a suite of blood diagnostics that were developed, manufactured, and then distributed by our global partners. We also developed one of the first synthetic peptide vaccine platforms. We've been very successful in animals. Currently, we actually probably dosed about 25% of the world's swine on an annual basis, and we've sold over 4.5 billion doses worldwide.
So 4.5 billion doses of vaccinated pigs around the world. It's amazing.
Yeah, we are part of the food chain. So.
And so you've been the experience that United Biomedical has had in both diagnostics and in vaccines. Can you talk about the diagnostics background as well?
Yeah, no. So like I said, we we cut our teeth in diagnostics. It's kind of in our blood. So Cheng Yuang, the chief scientific officer, developed the first peptide-based diagnostic for HIV and HCV. At the time, it was quite revolutionary because it cut the price of diagnostics by a fraction, to a fraction. And that those products have been selling for decades, actually, through our partners bioMérieux and Organa Technica. I think in early 2000s, actually, when the SARS epidemic came about, we actually worked on a SARS diagnostic as well with the NIH and also labs in Taiwan and China. Thankfully, SARS never came back, but that work is highly leveraged for C19.
And the vaccines the diagnostics you've been building for that family of viruses, what was the cost per diagnostic test, roughly?
When we go up to scale, it's in the dollars of doses. So.
Amazing. For a dollar dose for the diagnostic and a dollar dose or dollars per dose for the vaccine as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, for our animal health vaccines, we sell about 500 million a year for about $1 a dose, and we have very good margins still. So this is a highly scalable, highly efficient process and platform.
Lou, do you want add anything about the sort of the background of the United Biomedical companies and the relevance to the coronavirus pandemic right now?
The one thing I would like to add, I think Mei covered it perfectly, to be honest. The one thing that I think is important is that there was an outbreak, and all of us read about the dead pigs floating down the Yellow River in China, the Yangtze, and all of this, right? And that was like maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it was. And that meant that these vaccines that people were giving pigs stopped working because there was a mutation in the disease, the virus. We developed an entirely new vaccine and produced at scale hundreds of millions within a month to respond to that. And we solved that problem when it happened in China. This is very similar in terms of the way to be able to design with speed and to be able to create an outcome that I think is really disruptive, right? So I think that we were able to be ahead on the diagnostic because we happen to be a company with diagnostic expertise and a footprint in China and Taiwan. So we saw this coming and we've been preparing for months. So I think that's really important. So it gave us a head start. I think that's really critical.
And actually, Peter, if I may, there's actually one thing to add about our vaccine platform. It's been definitely commercialized and scaled up in animal health, but we've also tested in human health. So we have completed 4 successful, we've had 4 successful clinical trials in humans, and we're actually preparing for our phase 3 trial. So this is something that has been shown to be safe and immunogenic and effective in humans as well.
This is your platform for developing for vaccination antibodies, not yet in humans on COVID-19, but in other antigens. And we'll come back to that in a second. Let's talk about the diagnostic side of what C19, the division of United Biomedical, is creating. But before we do that, Mimi, if you could talk about what is the difference between a PCR test that's out there with nasal swabs right now versus the blood antibody test that C19 is developing.
Yeah, definitely. So the WHO is basically saying test, test, test. Everyone's saying when you see successful places contain outbreak, it's very testing oriented. So the RT-PCR tests right now that are the nasal swabs are being deployed, and they're very good at detecting active infection, but they do have some important limitations. So for instance, there's actually high variability because it takes skill to get the swabs. This virus somehow lives more in the lungs. So sometimes there's actually not enough viral matter coughed up. So as a result, there's a lot of false negatives. It's about 50% false negatives for the PCR. These are very individual. They're not really used for mass screening because they take quite a bit of time. The accuracy is a concern, but they can detect, active infection. What they can't tell you though is if maybe you've been infected and have recovered. So it can't really tell you what the outbreak prevalence is. So the antibody test, however.
And it could be that a person has the virus, but they've recovered and they have no virus particles in their sinus, or if the swab wasn't done properly, you might miss it altogether. And that's called a false negative.
Yeah, a false negative is basically when you actually have the virus, are infected, and yet you test negative. And so it's 50% false negative. So you can just think about an antibody test in contrast. Basically, when your body is exposed to a virus, it develops antibodies against that virus. Usually this takes, between 8 and 10 days after infection. Once that happens, it's called seroconversion. So the good thing about the antibodies is they stay in your body and your bloodstream, and it can be detected for quite a long time. So what our antibody test does is it checks if you've developed these antibodies. The benefits are they can be done in mass. I mean, these are very quick tests. They can be done in bunches. So for instance, our test, you can basically test 100 samples in about 2 hours. And there are automated machines that can do even more. So thousands of samples just in a small machine. The way that, communities can use it is actually do large scale testing. They can see what the actual outbreak prevalence is, and they can identify people that need to be isolated. So it's not just, everyone is isolated. If you do good routine testing protocols, you can find out who are the ones with potential active infections that need to be quarantined, and everyone else is either negative, which means, they've never been exposed to the virus, or they're positive, which means that they've been exposed to the virus, but they've recovered. So, they've developed some sort of immunity to them.
Talk 1 second about the diagnostics that United Biomedical is now developing within C19. So you've actually been building diagnostic kits for the COVID-19 for some time and shipping them out both overseas and domestically. Can you talk about the numbers that you've done and the price and the cost of these kits and how fast this is and how you do it? It's a blood draw. It's shipped. Talk about the numbers and the process here.
Yeah, so we've been fortunate enough to deploy over 100,000 kits or tests around the world in this fight so far, which is a drop in the ocean. Not to have like a blood pun, but it's a drop, but it's a meaningful drop, right? And this is something that, like you said, can be rapidly scaled up past that. We've deployed in Hubei at Ground Zero, and Shanghai, in Beijing, in parts of California, and in parts of Washington State, Colorado, and we're working with Wyoming, Florida, California, broadly, New York, and others every minute are calling to try to get access to additional screening and testing, and to try to get better information around what protocol we're utilizing here in San Miguel County.
So you draw blood, it's then shipped to a lab. What kind of a lab analyzes it? How fast is it analyzed? And what's the cost of a roughly order of magnitude here?
Yeah, the order of magnitude, the cost all in per test is in the tens of dollars right now at this scale. As we scale up, obviously it'll be even more accessible. So it's less expensive than a PCR right now, and we get the results in about 2 hours after it gets to the lab. It can be a little bit faster than that, depending on where you are, or a little bit slower, depending on where you are. Right now, labs are under a lot of pressure because there's an overwhelming amount of demand. Luckily, we have preferred relationships with several labs, so that's been extremely helpful. But yeah, it's about a 2-hour turnaround, so it's super fast.
And talk about the sensitivity and specificity of this versus PCR. One second.
Yeah, so these tests have been validated, as Lou said, over hundreds of patients, even more, in China, Taiwan, and also the California reference lab. Basically, after seroconversion, so once you start developing antibodies, our test is so far 100% specific and sensitive. I always feel uncomfortable saying 100%, but I don't know how else to explain it. We haven't has seen anything different yet. And so that means that, all the people that are positive test positive, and all the people that are negative test negative. So there are no false positives or no false negatives thus far.
So, and that's extraordinary. Again, it's a simple blood draw that takes 2 minutes into a tube and then sent to the lab. It's processed in a couple hours. You get the results right back. So, Lou, you've got the ability right now. You've been producing 10,000 tests a week, and you're gearing up for 1 million tests a week, and even potentially more than that.
No, it's 100,000. So we can produce 500 kits, which is about 100,000 tests a week, and we're gearing up for 1 million.
So that's something to speak to. Okay, so how did we increase our production dramatically in the last 5 days? The answer is we were on a phone call across the group of companies, Peter. And this isn't a joke. It's all these little faces on Zoom. We're all getting used to it. It's amazing. And so everybody's on there, and they're like, wait, so all you need are people that know how to do that and that? They're like, we're coming and we're helping. We're going to go 24 hours a day and just make more. And so I think it's really cool how the group of companies came together and supported it and just did it. So we're already increasing our capabilities, and when we're going to do it really fast, it's going to scale up super fast.
Lou, talk about scaling super fast. About a week ago, you had an amazing, epic idea that you're now in the midst of implementing. Can you talk about what the idea was and what you're implementing right now?
Yeah, about a week ago, we decided to get San Miguel County back to the new normal as fast as possible by implementing diagnostic testing and making it free for everybody in the county. That's never been done. And it's a best-in-class practice where we allow, literally within weeks, we'll know everyone who's been infected, everyone who currently is infected, and everybody in the county can get back to whatever the new normal is going to be. So it's a rapid path to creating a safe zone in San Miguel County, and it's a model for the rest of the country, and I think the world. So it's an opportunity to really solve the problem.
How big is San Miguel County, and how are you doing it, Maymay?
San Miguel County is about 7,500 people. So what we're doing is essentially we're offering free testing. It's all voluntary, but I think a lot of people have interest, in fact, probably most. And so we're offering free testing. Everyone comes in, gets tested, and then we go into essentially self-quarantine for 2 weeks, and we get tested at the end of that. If you're negative and negative both times, that means you've never been exposed to the virus. And so you can go back, but you should be realizing that you're susceptible to catching it. So continue to practice social distancing. If you're negative and positive, that means that you've developed an active infection. And so you need to be in quarantine and isolation until you've recovered. And then if you're positive, that means that you've already positive after 14 days. That means that you have been exposed to the virus at some point. But now you've developed some sort of immunity. We can't say exactly what immunity is, but it's good. It's good. Like, congratulations, you've developed antibodies. You should go back into the world. So
everybody gets a sticker.
You want that? I got antibodies. But what it means is then you know what the disease prevalence is in your community. You know who's the one that needs to be isolated. You know who's the one that's still susceptible, and who's the one that's actually essentially more protected from it. And people can start going back to the new normal. Besides the ones that are actively infected, they can start going out again. So that's the goal. And then the idea would be to roll out into larger and larger regions. So you gradually clean communities.
So C19 as a company with the production of these blood antibody tests could basically go and test entire companies and communities, schools, everything, and basically as a service go and do an entire test of a large population.
Yep, absolutely. That's we've already been approached by companies and communities wanting to do this, wanting to give it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're working actively with we're working actively with 2 of the top 5 global financial groups. We're working actively with a handful of household name and tech companies. So I think people that are really get it, that understand how critical this is, understand that you have a path to literally a new normal for your community. If we implement this, I mean, it's not. There, I mean, every article that's come out, whether it was in northern Italy just recently when they sent the Chinese researchers there, whether it was in Taiwan, whether it was in Singapore, whether it was in China, test, and more test. And so the solution to this, I know it sounds cumbersome, and I know it seems like a lot. It's not a big deal. Our whole family got our blood drawn yesterday. This is something that is necessary, and that eliminates the panic and the fear, allows the country and the world to get back to a new normal.
Let's talk about vaccination, because the other side of the business for C19 is developing a coronavirus, a COVID-19 vaccine, which is. Can you tell me where it is and when it's going into humans, and why you have such high confidence in its success?
Yeah. Sure. So our team, led by our chief scientific officer, has actually worked on coronaviruses before. They actually developed a vaccine for SARS, but like I said, thankfully SARS never came back. But we leveraged that to really understand the structure of coronavirus, COVID-19. And so we have actually 5 vaccine candidates in animal testing right now. They're just the final tweaking. And after that, we actually anticipate going into humans. So sometime this summer, we'll be ready.
Guys, this is an extraordinary time. There are new regulations and guidances being put out by the FDA every day, which is why our kit could come out to market and our tests could get to people so quickly. So the guidance and the vision of the FDA and leadership in this country is amazing right now. They're focused on it, and they're trying to do something to catch up, and not only catch up, but get ahead. And I think that's really cool. So the vaccines, let me be 100% real about that. Under normal environments, Meme is exactly right. So if there were no outbreak and there were no panic, what she said, that's the timeline. There is an outbreak and there's a panic, and there's a lot of movement to solve it. We have 5 vaccine candidates. We started with over 30. They've already been tested in animals. The 5 that are ready have robust responses in antibodies that we want. We should be testing those in people immediately. And the way to do it is to get leadership to acknowledge and understand that, and let us go forward. So the answer is, it could be as soon as immediately based on the situation, and it could be as long as, based on a traditional process, as long as August.
So one thing that's very important is the platform that you use for generating these vaccines has already been in humans and proven a safety.
Yeah.
Yes.
So important. I think that's absolutely a brilliant point. I mean, we've done 4 human clinical trials. All of them have been successful. If this weren't happening, if there weren't an epidemic right now, we would be in Washington meeting with the FDA, asking them to let us go for our final trial for an approved, so that we can get an approved Alzheimer's vaccine to the public, right? So the track record there is amazing. And in all 4, the underlying critical element here is that it's safe, right? So 4.5 to 5 billion pigs at least, they don't lie. They're all safe. All these people we tested, they're all safe, right? Okay, so it's a safe platform. So I believe that the platform technology that we're using, the underlying platform technology that's disruptive and demonetizing and has a revolution in health coming, I think that we could use that right now to fight this pandemic. And I think, so I think that's a question of leadership. And like I mentioned, the FDA is amazing and has been stepping up, and I believe the administration is stepping up to try to push things as well.
And actually, not only is it safe, but it's scalable and it's cost effective. So that's something that's good for the masses.
one of the things I love about United Biomedical, in fact, the vision that both of you have as leaders and entrepreneurs, is the whole concept of demonetization and democratization, that these vaccines can be put out at single dollars per dose at scale and available worldwide very fast. How fast could you scale up the United Biomedical C19 vaccine? How fast could you scale to, 100 million doses?
We could have, that's a very specific question. The answer, and I'll give you the answer as close as I can, right? It's a great question because it matters. I believe that we can scale up to millions of doses in a matter of weeks, so that's fast. The scaling up to 100 million doses is probably a matter of a few more weeks in addition to that, maybe a couple of months in addition to that. It would depend on where and how the supply was managed by leadership under these times right now. So that it changes the equation slightly because of that.
Can I give you just a more general answer? We can produce millions of vaccines right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And your company, one of the most important things right now is that United Biomedical has how many vaccines do you produce in the animal world per year?
Through our subsidiary, we produce about 500 million vaccines a year.
Yeah. All right. So that's proof of the ability of the family companies to deliver. So guys, any final words? Let's wrap this up. Keep it short. But first of all, thank you for the extraordinary work that you guys are doing. Literally, I know I'm in the midst of it with you to some degree. You're getting very little sleep 24/7 at Command Central, and it's amazing. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Well, we couldn't do it without our family and our best friends, and you're one of them. So thank you. It's amazing to be in the fight with this, and you never thought I would be calling you so often at 5 in the morning, did you?
I know. And I love you for it. All right, Lou, Reese, Mei Hugh, co-CEOs of United Biomedical and their division C19. Excited for what's rolling out. You provide hope and a beacon of hope for everybody here. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Peter.
Thank you so much, Peter. We love you. Take care.
Love you too. Take care, guys.